All right, folks, welcome back to another episode. I wanted to welcome my next guest. He is a hip hop producer, a DJ, audio engineer, known for his gritty and soulful production. I wanted to welcome my brother DJ M-1 to the show. Hey, appreciate you doing the session with me.
Not at all. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I know we've been trying to get this thing locked on for a minute, so I'm glad we finally made some time and got it down. But yeah, hey, let's go back to the beginning, man. Just real quick. Tell me how long you've been DJing and making beats.
So I started DJing first. So that would have been around, I was later than most. So my early 20s. So about the year 2000, kind of
Okay.
I got my first turntables. And then um, around 2005, I started getting into production. So I kind of taught myself how to scratch and beat juggle and mix and stuff like that. And then that natural progression was production
Oh,
after that. So
nice. Yeah,
2005.
so you're known for making hip hop, rap music, and so I'm interested how that started. So real quick, what was your first exposure to music? What were your parents listening to when you were a kid?
Yeah, so funnily enough, like hip hop, it was much later for me. So I was about,
Yeah.
you know, even though like obviously I'm Irish, so we're a tiny little country, like quite far away from America.
Yeah.
So we didn't really kind of like, we didn't really get hip hop until much later than everybody else, basically. So the first kind of things I was listening to was like punk rock,
Yeah.
heavy metal, like rock. When I was a little kid, my parents were into like, I suppose like what would have been kind of hippie-ish music, like the Beatles,
Yeah.
JJ Cale, like things like that. My dad was big into music. He used to like craft work. I'm trying to think what else he used to like. Genesis, like early Genesis, so kind of like weird prog rocky type of stuff.
Yeah.
And then my mother was more the Beatles, and then she was into classical music as well. So she was very like, yeah. I actually always remembered when I was a kid, she said to me that she didn't like rap music. So yeah, but I kind of yeah. So I basically was into a lot of punk rock, and then Nirvana would be a big
Yeah.
kind of a big thing for me. And then Jimi Hendrix, kind of Cream,
Yeah.
old kind of rock, and I always kind of wanted to play the guitar and be in like a rock band. That's originally kind of my interest in music,
Yeah.
but I wasn't very good, basically. So DJing was the kind of best way for me to make music without needing a band, basically. So that's
Yeah.
kind of how I progressed with DJing, and at the same time, I kind of had found hip hop. I suppose over here, what would have been big when I was younger was about 14. Kind of yeah, Nirvana was big, and then grunge and everything kind of broke, and then heavy
Right.
metal. But then at the same time, people like Cypress Hill,
Yeah.
Ice T, and Ice Cube, they would have kind of got to us as well because they were like huge. And then electronic music as well. So a lot of kind of like rave, the early rave kind of stuff from the UK as well would have been big. So I do remember kind of yeah, I liked Cypress Hill. That was kind of like it was almost they had like rock influences that kind of appealed to a lot of my friend group, that way. And then
Yeah.
trying to think, I do remember seeing De La Soul on. They used to have this thing in the UK called Top of the Pops, which is like this
Wow.
kind of cheesy chart kind of program. And De La Soul, me, myself, and I remember that in the 80s and
Yeah.
being into that and kind of being like, what's this kind of, you know, music. But yeah, so rock and roll, stuff like that, band music was my kind of early introduction to music.
Yeah, well, were you born in the 80s then? Sounds like you grew up in the 90s. You talk
Yeah,
about
yeah,
some of the same bands that I listened to at the same time.
yeah, exactly. I was born in 1980, so I'm like in my early 40s. So
Yeah,
that all that kind of stuff was like, you know, that's my era as such,
yeah,
the 1980s.
same. I was born in '79, and so yeah, that's about the same time. So you talked about a lot of the groups that I grew up listening to. And so interesting though, a lot of the groups that you mentioned were American. So were there any UK inspired bands that you listened to? I know House was big in the 90s out there, but was it primarily
Yeah,
American music?
For me, yeah, I think it was primarily American stuff. Like I did like, you know, in regards to the UK, like I suppose one big one for me would have been the Sex Pistols.
All
Like when I
right.
heard them when I was
Yeah.
a little kid, I was like, yeah, you
Yeah.
know what I
Yeah.
mean? It was
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
blew my mind, and I was like, ah! But so they would have been a big one. But like, yeah, the UK obviously is like our next door neighbors, so
Right.
they a lot of our stuff, obviously, you know, much like yourself, you would remember like days before the internet. So it was kind of, impossible to get a lot of like America was so far away from us at the time. You
Right. There
know,
isn't there isn't internet time. So yeah, I totally understand.
yeah. So the UK was actually a very big influence. We would watch a lot of UK television,
Yeah.
a lot of bands as well. Yeah. So like I suppose in my later teens there was the big kind of like indie rock thing, like the Stone Roses and Blur and all those kind of things, and Oasis, of course, they came a bit later and stuff. But I would have been kind of into that stuff as well. But yeah, so basically, to be honest with you, I kind of like if it's good music, then I'm kind of into it, that way.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. I think that, yeah, I mean, I listen to everything still to this day, a lot of 80s music too. And so just found that really interesting. And you mentioned that, you got into rap, hip hop later, tried playing some guitar for a little bit. But when do you think in your timeline did you finally latch on to hip hop rap music? Was that as a teenager
oh
or
yeah,
or in your early 20s?
so that was when I was about 17, 18. My
Okay.
best friend, he was into hip hop, and he liked Wu-Tang Clan and a lot
Yeah.
like a lot of West Coast stuff. He gave me a cassette tape of 36 Chambers, and
Oh, that's the best way to start, man.
yeah, and I basically, so I remember I had this cassette tape, and I always remember I had it for ages. And he was like, one day we were in school together, and he was like, "Are you gonna give me that cassette tape back? Like, I'll give it back to you, all right." And I basically, I remember putting it on and just being like, "What the fuck is this?" You know what I mean? And
Huh.
just being it actually being like alien music to me, and kind of being like, because even as far as hip hop goes, I would have heard Cypress Hill and De La Soul, and I'd be
Right.
aware of it. And then Ice T and Ice Cube would have been big for me as well. But really, when I got when I heard 36 Chambers, I was like the way that the beats and everything were, and it was just so
Different.
cinematic. Yeah, totally different. And it was like it really that's what like that album completely like changed. I just after that I was just like don't care about other types of music. I want every hip hop album that's ever existed. That was what really kind of cinched it for me. And
Yeah.
then that and then the other one that was really big for me as well would be Gangstar. When
Ooh.
I heard Gangstar, I
Yeah.
was like, and I heard particularly when I kind of saw DJ Premier scratching that combination of like kind of
Yeah.
they're very hip hop as opposed to Wu Tang Clan. They're very kind of more cinematic and kind of they have like their own world. Whereas
Yeah.
Gangstar for me was very much like this is what hit the five elements of hip hop are. This
Right.
is you know, and so when I heard DJ Premier, like I wanted to make beats because of the RZA, and I wanted to be a DJ because of DJ Premier.
Yeah,
That's the
Primo.
yeah.
Hey,
So
that's not a bad combination. Hey, you were telling
no,
a
no, yeah.
story about the 36 Chambers. Was that Wu-Tang album at the time, was it brand new or was that way later? So
So I
when
think when did that come out? That was like '94, I think, when that came out. Was
yeah,
it
that's
early
right,
'90s?
early 90s. So I'm just trying
So
to figure out if you were introduced to it late.
yeah, it was late because I'm
Okay.
pretty sure that Wu Tang Forever was out,
Oh,
and
yeah, with
basically
Triumph. Yep.
yeah, yeah, or maybe it was a little bit before that actually, but around that time,
Yeah.
and I knew who Wu Tang Clan were
Okay.
before I'd heard it because it was just everywhere. You know what I mean? Everybody in
Yeah.
my school that I went to, like you'd be kind of like there's like people would take their lunch break and there's like
Yeah.
kind of like grass areas around and people with like boom boxes and stuff and Wu Tang Clan would be like forever would be on stereos stuff like that or
Yeah,
people would be, so I was aware of it, but it wasn't until he gave me that tape and I had it myself and I put it on and I kind of like listened to it on my own and I was just like, whoa, you know.
no, I just I asked that because just it reminds me of the impact that the Wu Tang Clan had on the world. And so, I mean, I was in Japan at the time. You were in Ireland, and just what you had
Yeah,
described was kind of the same feeling I had when I first heard the album. So I just, it's amazing, man. Just the way that
yeah,
music
yeah,
touches people. But hey, that's
yeah.
awesome, man. So yeah, Premier influenced and then influenced by the RZA, who had some very nice call it dirty beats. But yeah, your style is very similar too. You've got that same that gritty sound that I really enjoy, and just the
Oh,
soul
good.
samples that come from both producers, man. But
Mm.
let me talk to you about DJing real quick. How did you acquire your first set of turntables? That's quite expensive for a young lad. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so basically um I'm trying to think now. Oh yeah, I finished school, so like high school in
Okay.
America, and I basically wanted to do graphic design. I wanted to be a graphic designer. That's what I always kind of thought I was going to do.
Wow.
And I basically finished high school, and you do these kind of like short courses where you do a portfolio course, where you get together all your stuff, and then you show it to college, and then you go into it. So it's kind of like a short kind of course thing. And I started doing that, and I basically decided that I didn't like it. So I left that and I got a job and I basically got a job in Tower Records. And
Oh,
so I started
nice.
working there. Yeah. So there's a Tower Records in Dublin here, the capital city. And I started working there and I basically, it was quite funny when I think back to it now, but I basically was like, okay, I want to make music and I couldn't get it together to have a band. And it's too difficult. So what's the best? I was thought about this and I was like, what's the best way for me to make music? Easily without needing a band. I was like, DJ, that's like being a one man band. And I was
Yeah.
like, okay. So I started working in Terror Records, and I basically was like putting by records. So like you used to be able to kind of like keep records for yourself to buy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I started putting by records, and I didn't even know what kind of DJ I wanted to be. Like at
Yeah.
the time, I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna drum and bass was really big.
Okay.
And I was like, I'm going to be a jungle drum and bass DJ. That's all I'm going to do. So I thinking in my head. But then, like a little bit later, I was like, hang on a second. Like all I do is listen to hip hop. Like
Okay. Spinning
why am
something
I so
else.
vegan? Yeah, yeah. Why am I going over here to do this thing? So basically, then I just started getting hip hop. And then
Yeah.
I got a loan from the bank and basically went and bought a pair of Stanton turntables at the
Oh
time. So
wow.
they weren't even belt drive. They're belt drive, I think. So they
Oh
kind of,
yeah.
when you're scratching, they would actually like, unlike techniques or techniques, their techniques, you scratch, they just, they straight away they go
Smooth.
or
Yeah.
whatever. These would be like kind of like slow, and you kind of have to like
Yeah.
jump them to get them going. They were like so bandy or whatever. So they were the first ones I got. And I got a loan, and I basically was trying to kind of do mix and scratch and stuff on them, but they weren't like they weren't good enough or whatever. So I found a friend of mine who actually had Technics. Basically,
Oh,
he was like,
nice.
"Oh look, I want to get rid of mine. Do you want to buy them?" And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, absolutely." So I sold the Stanton ones and then bought his Technics off him,
Oh,
and I
fantastic.
still have the same one to this day.
Oh, do you really? Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
because
you're
you
still
have to.
using it. Those are the ones you use to perform it.
Yeah, absolutely. So they're
Wow.
probably
Things got good life on them.
oh yeah, they could even be like they're over 20 years old at this stage. So
Fantastic. Yeah, how much
yeah,
maintenance did you have to do? Did you have to replace any parts or they hold pretty well?
they hold pretty well. Like you have to kind of resolder the phono
Yeah.
cables and stuff out of them. I did used to take them out to gigs in the early days, which was a bad idea. And I do remember being at a gig that a friend of mine asked me to do, and then I basically left the gig, and he was like, "Oh, I'll bring them back to your house or whatever the next day." He brought them back, and he'd thrown them in the boot of his car, and one of the tone arms was broken on it. And I was just like, dude, what the hell? So I had to replace that at the time. But yeah, that's pretty much it. They're pretty solid.
Yeah, and so I recently learned that there were different kind of DJs, and when I say that, we
Yeah,
got mixed DJs who know how to mix the tracks, and then
yeah,
this new term, I guess it's probably not new, just not me not being familiar with it. They call them selectors, where they don't mix and
yeah,
they just kind of like fade the music out and then fade the new song in, and
yeah.
and some other stuff, man. Are you a mixed DJ? Like you can mix the music, or what do you consider yourself?
Well, I don't want to be cocky, but I'm the best DJ. You
There you
know,
go, baby.
I can do it all.
Yeah,
But that's what hip hop has taught me.
yeah,
And to be honest with you, yeah, I'm a mixed DJ. I would consider myself a turntablist. Like really, that's what I
perfect.
am. The first thing that I ever wanted to do was scratch. I
Yeah,
heard DJ scratching, and I was like, "What's that? Oh, I want to do that."
yeah,
And that's the first thing I kind of did. But I used to like electronic music was big here, so I used to play kind of electronic music in clubs
yeah,
and things like that.
sure.
You know, house music, techno, drum and bass, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, super big
And
in Europe.
yeah, absolutely. And it's
Mhm.
it's kind of a thing that it's good in a lot of ways because you learn all the aspects of DJ.
Right, good point. Different
And
speeds.
yeah, exactly, and you know when to do it, when not to do it. So
Right.
um, because I would have done a lot of gigs that my friends would have put on, like raves. We have raves here. Where I live
Yeah.
is along the coastline, so we're kind of just down from the capital, from Dublin,
Yeah.
and like, there was a lot of like forests and stuff around from us. People used to do raves. We'd go to raves and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
there'd be electronic music and all sorts of stuff. But then
Yeah.
I also did a lot of commercial kind of DJing, so I
Yeah,
would
sure.
DJ in like, bars and stuff like that. And you'd have to play different kind of stuff there. So you play like disco music,
Yeah.
funk and soul, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, to command the crowd, you got to know what the right songs are to play, and I love that you mix different music because you're right, it operates at different BPMs, and so each type of BPM requires a certain mix to it. But no, that's great because I'm not knocking any of the new stuff because you have to adapt to technology, but a lot of stuff
Yeah,
counts your BPMs for you, and
yeah,
you can mix a little easier than when you were doing it. I mean, you had to
yeah.
have the ear for it, and it was a lot of practice, and
Mm.
so man, I just I
Well, yeah,
recognize the grind that you put into it, starting in the '90s or early 2000s at least.
yeah. Well, I often think that like the reason that I was able to kind of, you know, move into production was because I started with DJing. So you kind
Right?
of learn how things fit together, and you kind of go, okay, you know, and then you learn what the you know from listening to hip hop is an amazing kind of music because of sampling,
Yeah.
because it takes from
Right.
all these different genres of music, and you start to learn about those things. You're like, oh, this is what jazz is. It's like,
No, and that's a great point, man. And I love that you're into the scratching aspect too, man. I'm really big into it. I enjoy it using my music, and so that too. How hard was that to learn? Because that's a different skill in its own, very separate to mixing. Are you into beat juggling and scratching? And did you use the Vestax off the bat, or what do you use to
yeah.
scratch?
So I have the same Technics 1210s, and then at the moment I have a new mixer. Actually, I just got a Newmark Scratch mixer, so it's the
Hey,
first time I've had a new Mac mixer in like I don't know, probably about 15 years. And
oh,
previous to that, I had a Vestax PMC 05 Pro 2, which is basically when I got those first set of turntables, I had like a Newmark kind of scratch mixer. I think it was not a
right.
very good one. And then a few years later, I got this Vestax mixer, and I'd say that was like 2005, something like that. And I
Wow.
basically have used the same one up until this year, is when I got that Newmark one. So I'm old in more than just I'm old school in more than just the music.
Yeah.
you
Hey,
know?
all good, man. I did have to bring this up, man. If I worked at Tower Records, my check would be spent way before I got it. So I'm yeah.
Yeah,
Oh man, I've been doing the
yeah.
same thing as you, putting stuff to the side, and I don't know if I'd make it out there with any money, man. That must have been a fun job.
Yeah, it was. It's actually great. It's like where I built up my record collection. So I have a
Oh,
pretty big record collection because of that.
oh man.
Like,
Yeah, I don't know if the tower. I know the Tower Records in Japan, where I grew up, they would bring people to perform at Tower Records. Was that like that in Ireland too? You guys had
yeah,
folk.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. We
Oh,
had loads of people come through. Local and bigger people as
yeah,
well.
yeah. Hey, and so what about your DJing? Did you go out when you before? Were you spinning mostly in the Dublin area, or are there great music scenes outside of Dublin? I mean, I'm sure Dublin was the city center for live
Yeah,
music, but
yeah. I mean, Dublin was very kind of around that time, around the kind of well, mid to late '90s. We kind of had a good mix of music. Like I would have like my first concert, I think what I went to myself was in '94, and at that was like Ice Cube was out,
oh man,
yeah, Helmet as well, and a few other people and stuff like that. So we and stuff like that, more kind of like clubs and DJing was very big, like and all sorts of stuff. So, I primarily kind of played around Dublin, but mostly when I was kind of younger in my twenties, it was doing gigs with friends of mine.
yeah,
So it was
sure,
kind of like a mixture of stuff. Like I have friends who would have been kind of promoting gigs and putting on gigs and stuff like that. So I would have done that stuff with them. And then also there's another my best friend lived in Galway and he put on gigs and stuff like that. So I travel over there and we play
nice.
together and stuff. Yeah, and then later on, I would have kind of got into the kind of more commercial kind of side of DJing where I do it for a living. Basically, it was part of my income, so it was more disco funk and stuff like that. For people drinking and all that kind of stuff. A bit more corporate, and then we do
Yeah,
events and stuff like that as well. So wasn't
wow,
that fun?
yeah, amazing, man. And so now I want to ask you now is your transition to making beats. You started as a DJ. You said
Yeah.
you had some influence from the RZA and DJ Premier. And so what was your process of learning like? How were you teaching yourself? YouTube wasn't really as strong edge, still starting up, but who taught you?
So I didn't have a clue about anything. I didn't. I was completely clueless about beats, and obviously I kind of like felt like I had kind of the DJing thing I kind of mastered,
Yeah.
and I remember kind of like asking a few people I worked with at Tower Records, and then also um, my cousin is a producer and DJ, but of electronic music,
Okay.
and I would ask him kind of for kind of like pointers and stuff like that,
Sure.
and he would have been pretty big in electronic music, and he's a very good producer and a really good DJ,
Oh,
but very different genre kind of stuff that I wasn't really into. But he had a lot of gear in like he had a whole studio and like he would have had like any synthesizer you could name he had,
sure.
and but basically I kind of like I remember getting like a an old Mac desktop. I don't even know what it was. I think it was maybe somebody that I knew. It was like out of they're getting thrown out of their offices that they used to use. I got that, and basically I got a copy of Reason um, from someone in work, and basically I got that, and I got the Mac, and I literally like had no idea how to work it. I was just like, what is this? And I basically kind of figured it out myself, just kind of enough as I could. And then I got to a certain point, and I kind of was talking to my cousin and stuff like that, and
Nice.
I was kind of like, oh, what should I do next or whatever. I can't really, there's only so far I can go with this. So basically, I decided that I'd go and do sound engineering in college. So I basically left my
Oh
job at
man.
Terra Records and then just went to college. And I did that for 2 years, and I kind of when I started, I was like I couldn't really, even really loop samples and stuff like that properly. I wasn't like I just I just didn't have a clue.
Yeah. Are you
Basically,
talking
I got
about chopping up the sample or just what was the
yeah,
hard part?
yeah. So
Okay.
I couldn't. I just didn't have a clue. I was just like, how does this work? How does sampling work? Like you know, I kind of like roughly got it going and reason.
Yeah.
Kind of like, okay, this is how you put samples in the sampler and stuff like that. It was just awful. It was like terrible, terrible, terrible. And I basically got into college and started to kind of like learn properly like sampling and
Okay.
synthesizers and then mixing and all that kind of stuff and
Man.
really get educated with it. And then at the same time, my cousin would kind of give me pieces of gear, analog gear. He'd be like,
Sure.
"Here, take this
This.
synthesizer, bring it home." And I'd be like, "What's this?" Turn on the button.
That's the best, man. Yeah.
Yeah, and just it was just literally, I had no clue, and I just was just like, same thing. I was just like pressing all the buttons. Like, what does
Yeah.
this do? What does that do? And yeah, eventually I kind of got better and better at it. And by the time I'd done that 2 years of sound engineering, then I kind of knew what I was doing.
Yeah, that's the cool part because you're a DJ already, so you understand the elements of a song, and you know what moves the crowd. You understand human dynamics in music, and so that probably influenced your beat making a lot. But how soon after you started making beats did you actually get rappers on your beats? So,
A long time after that, a very long time. So I was making beats, and I think the first thing that I did was I'm trying to think now. I think it was 2013, maybe
yeah.
2013.
Oh, some time. It was quite some
So
time.
yeah, yeah, I'd be doing it for about 7 or 8 years, I'd say.
Yeah.
I had like, and I basically, I went through all different genres of music as well. I kind of was like, hip hop is like my core. That's the way I always view it. But
Yeah.
when I was in college, I kind of like learned how to do other stuff. Like I was recording bands. I was like playing instruments myself,
Sick.
making electronic music and anything that I could do to kind of
Fantastic.
get my knowledge better. And I, yeah, so I basically was like, I need to be good at this before I actually start approaching people. And
Yeah.
then in Ireland, there is a hip hop scene here, but I was always like, I want to work with American rappers. That's always the way I wanted to do it. So
Interesting.
yeah, originally I thought I was going to be like instrumental kind of hip hop. That's what I was making at the time.
Right.
And then I think kind of like MySpace and all that kind of stuff started happening, and you know, the internet in general. And I started kind of
Right.
like linking with people through that, and that's where I started to kind of like go, oh, okay, maybe I can actually connect with people in the US and start
Yeah.
to get American rappers on my beats.
Yeah.
And so yeah, but I wasn't until like 2013, I think, when I did my first release that I actually really started working with someone properly.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
you had to perfect your craft and develop your sounds, so completely understandable. Well, it's awesome that you stuck with it and you're making you're making music, amazing music today. It's funny too, the fascination with somebody from Ireland wanting to work with American rappers. I have the opposite feeling too, that I really enjoy working with folks from other countries. And so,
oh,
yeah,
cool.
yeah. So I know you guys, like every country has a specific sound or the way they say things. And I think it just makes for a beautiful mix of music. So,
Yeah.
and I'm sure that that's probably why too. So that's really cool.
Mm.
Real quick, before I go into your music, there are a couple things that I want to talk about in Ireland called Scary Eerie, forefathers of Irish hip hop. Are you familiar with their music at all?
He worked with them originally. I think he helped engineer, record some of their early stuff.
Are you
And
kidding me? Oh, dope.
yeah, 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 yeah. And then they're like legendary in Ireland. They would be like,
I
I mean,
know.
they were signed to Island Records, I think, and they basically they recorded an album for them, and then Island Records were like, "Jesus, we can't release this. This is too like gnarly. It's like
Hey,
completely like crazy." Yeah, yeah. And there's their DJ is a guy called DJ Neck, who
okay.
is like
Yep.
he
Eh,
would be like, I would have. kind of saw him and stuff like that and been like, oh, whoa, this is like, he's like 80s. I think he's the 80s. I think they're around it, like doing stuff.
Yeah.
But they're legendary. Yeah, they're kind of like lead rapper is a guy called Reraw, and he's amazing. Like they're all amazing. They're incredible.
Yeah.
But
I
they
didn't
would be.
realize they were still making music today.
I'm not too sure if they make music anymore. I know Reraw does stuff solo stuff. Um, he did a kind of a single there with guys from the UK who would have been big in the early '90s called oh god, what were they called? Sons of Noise.
Okay.
And he did a song a track with them. But he does stuff himself. I think he produces himself as well.
Oh
And
no.
he's still like amazing. He's I'm pretty sure he's from a place called is he from Tremor or Tralee? I can't remember.
Okay.
He's from somewhere like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Meth is
yeah,
from Dublin, I think.
yeah. I heard the song called "Rev It Up" from the '90s, and oh man, it captured the '90s sound really well. And I
Mm.
thought it was great. Usually, when I hear stuff from other countries, because they catch on to hip hop a little later. It started, in the
Yeah.
'70s, and then, by the time other countries got it, maybe about '90s. But I thought it would be more of an experimental sound. But it sounded like stuff that was coming out of the U.S. That "Rev It Up" song reminded me of Far Side style of music, and
Yeah.
it was quite impressive, man. And so I got to go back and listen to their first album. And you mentioned it that they produced an album, but it was held on for so long and it didn't get released
Yeah.
for whatever reason. I think it was like
Yeah.
13 years later. So do you know
Yeah.
the
I think
background? Was
I
it just because a sound they weren't ready for, or what caused the delay?
yeah. I think they're just scared of them, to be totally honest with you. I think they're actually scared of them. Yeah, they're very imposing dudes. Like you wouldn't want to mess with them. Like
Okay.
they're they're very kind of like they're you like I've never met them personally. Like I obviously only know them, through their music and stuff like that.
Right.
But, I would talk to Mac, you know, on
Online.
Instagram and stuff like that. Yeah, and he seems like a really like pretty like
Sure.
friend of us, but I think for whatever reason it didn't get released. But I must actually look
Yeah.
it up. But they're brilliant. Like they're
Yeah.
brilliant. There's a guy called Dada Sloosh, I think, Mr. Brown,
Yep. Got a solution.
Rewa, and DJ Mac.
That's right.
Yeah, and I think Mr. Brown. Actually, I worked in a clothes shop in Dublin, and Mr. Brown. I I don't think he worked there when I was there, but he was the security guard in the clothes shop, and he was like he's a tough dude. You wouldn't want to mess with him. So yeah, but they're amazing. Like really, really, really. They would be. There's an incredible hip hop scene here now, and
Yeah.
kind of when I was a teenager, it was just scary era where the like they're basically the 440 would argue with that.
Yeah. I'll certainly have to go back and listen to that album. The last thing I want to talk about before I go into your music is the Irish drill scene, 2015. And so another type of rap music that is also quite prevalent I guess maybe UK and Ireland scene too. Are you familiar with any of that music, the drill scene? And for folks not familiar with drill scene, can you explain what Irish drill music is?
Well, I actually have no clue, if I'm honest.
Oh,
I
okay.
that
Yeah.
Yeah, that wouldn't really be my generation, basically. But I really don't like. I think it's like our version of trap music,
Yeah,
basically,
that's
isn't it?
right.
It's like
Yeah.
a more
Trap gangster
European.
music.
Yeah, I know. Like, there's a group called Kneecap. I don't know if you've heard of
Yep,
them.
that's right.
They're from Northern Ireland, and they are very interesting because they basically do drill music, but then they rap in Irish. So they
Oh,
rap in Gaelic, basically. Um, and they're big. They've done a kind of a fictionalized movie about their kind of like lives and
yeah.
stuff like that. That's supposed to be really amazing. I haven't seen it yet, but I know a lot of people that kind of say like, oh, they're incredible. But it's kind of like a different generation to me. I'm kind of
That's
like,
right. Way different. Yeah,
you know,
later on. Yeah.
yeah. But I think
Okay.
like it's I don't diss it or anything like that. It's not that I'm like, oh, it has to be this. You know what I mean? It's just
Right.
that it's like a different age group and stuff like that. But Ireland has like completely changed as far as hip hop. in the last like even 10 years or whatever. It's like
Yeah,
there's so
sure.
many different nationalities that come into this country and kind of like mix it up for the good basically, and kind of
Right.
brought some really interesting kind of different influences and stuff like that. Yeah, so
Yeah.
unfortunately, I don't have a clue about drill and stuff like that. I was like,
Yeah. I just found it interesting, when I was trying to study music out there. And so yeah, no, you're
yeah,
right, man. Your version of trap and gangster music. And so just thought it was interesting, the different pockets and the way that rap music evolves. But yeah, man,
yeah,
let's get into your stuff now. Holy cow, man, you got some great stuff. I first learned about
thank
you
you.
from my buddy Cume, a good friend of mine who I started rapping with in the 90s, well, yeah, probably late 90s, out in Santa Cruz,
Right.
California. Can you quickly tell me how you two linked up?
So Hume is in a group called On Tilt, and in that group, the other member is Luke Sick, and he is a member of another group, one of a gazillion groups, and the group is called Grand Invincible. And I don't know how I came across Grand Invincible, but I heard their music. I heard their album Demolition Strictly. I don't know how I found it, but I remember seeing the cover and being like, "Oh, this looks cool." And I
Ah,
listened to it and I was like, "Whoa, this is like my type of music." I was like, "Oh
Cume is the
yeah, this
man,
is yeah." And like I was like, "Holy shit!" And then I started listening to Luke Six. He has a record label called Mega Cut. He has like loads of groups that he releases himself on it.
Right.
And as I started to kind of like learn about his stuff, then I discovered On Tilt, and that's how I discovered Hume through On Tilt. And On Tilt is very kind of like different again from Grand Invincible. It's more like party kind of stuff, funky.
Yeah.
But not that Grand Invincible isn't, but it's kind of like a different kind of vibe. And yeah, that's how I heard Hume, and we just started chatting on Instagram and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I like his again, you know, because being in Ireland, we might have missed a lot of this stuff. Like you're saying, you started rapping with him in the '90s, and I know that he has like an incredible, you know, history of music and stuff like that, as you do. But I might not have heard of that because of
Right. Just so
my
much.
locality, you know. And so I just, look, number one, I'm a fan of hip hop. That's the first thing. I'd rather listen to somebody else's music than my own.
I
That's
feel
my
you.
interest. And so I started, yeah, I was like Luke and Hume. I was like, and like all of you guys, like everybody's connected to it. I was like, oh, like the history that you guys all have, the amount of albums and releases, like every one of them are just like really, really good. Um,
Yeah.
you know, like all of you guys, really, really good MCs. And I also like, New York would be my kind of East Coast is really where like, would be
Yeah.
my kind of because of Wu Tang and
Yeah.
Gang Starr
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff. But I also love the West Coast stuff as well. And you
I
guys,
so much dope music.
so much, yeah. And I think when I was kind of a teenager and stuff like that, obviously Dre was big and Death Row and G Funk and all that kind of stuff.
Ooh, yeah. Oh, G Funk.
I
Yep.
so much stuff, and I kind of wouldn't have been as into that because it was a bit more kind of like funk based, whereas I kind of preferred the more hardcore kind of like East Coast kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But then I started to discover that there was a lot of groups on the West Coast that were doing more kind of East Coast flavor, their version of that as well. And
Right.
like, so when I heard Grand Invincible and Hume and yourself and all you guys, you were all doing that type of stuff, and I was like, oh, here, this is right up my alley. I love G Funk, like don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
but I thought it was really interesting. But you have like the Far Side,
Yeah.
Freestyle Fellowship, and all these kind of groups that are kind of more, sample based
Yeah.
as well. But yeah, that's how I kind of found out about Q.
Yeah. And I'm excited to know that you guys, I think you guys are doing an album, right? I wasn't sure if it was an EP, but Q mentioned
Yeah.
that you guys are doing a project together. Is that where is it at in the stage?
So he told me that he keeps sending me tracks, and I'm just like every track I'm like, oh, what, you know, but I was like, they're amazing. But he sent me a track there the other week, and he said that he thinks he's nearly finished recording all the tracks.
Okay.
So once that's done, it shouldn't be that long before
Man, I can't wait.
he'll send them back to me, and then I'll get on top of it. But I think he got a bit. He had to go to the hospital and stuff like that in the middle of it. So I think
Right.
kind of he was getting better and stuff, and
Yep.
so yeah, he's kind of out of action for a bit. But yeah, everything he sent me so far is just like blown my mind. It's
Yeah.
funny.
Hey, do you guys have a title yet? Is it too early to reveal? Can I get a preview of the album title?
No, we've no title so far,
Okay.
and I would think that he will probably come up with the title.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking. Usually, when it comes to titles and stuff like that, I let the lyricists kind of come up with that. I'm
Okay.
like, I'll do the music, you do the words.
Hey,
So
well, either way, man, I look forward to hearing the project. And so, something, man, I went through your catalog over the last few weeks and just amazing music, man. I started with The Martyr's Revenge with Grim Moses back in 2020. Ah, man, some great stuff out in the world. Revenge, Last Dance. What's that? Where's that in your timeline? To it, you got quite a diverse
no, that was
catalog.
kind of yeah, that was kind of like a later one actually. That was kind of a yeah. I think it was
Great.
around the pandemic actually. We did that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
and
right.
basically, I just, to be honest with you, is like, like I spend most of my days listening to hip hop wherever I can find it,
Hmm.
underground, overground, whatever, I don't care. And I'm always kind of like listening to MCs, obviously, with a view if I could work with them or not. And I heard him, and I basically was like, I was looking to work with someone different again that I had worked with before, and
Yeah.
he's a more kind of like modern. Well, he would be more kind of like less golden era and more kind of the new wave of kind of like loop
Early
based stuff
after.
and
I
that
can
type
see
of
that.
thing. Yeah, and even though he actually, as I found out more from him, that he has a huge history in hip hop. He's not like he's done so much stuff as well before I
Yeah.
kind of figured out who he was. But yeah, I just heard his stuff and I was like, this is cool. And I just ended up talking to him again through Instagram, the internet, and just online, and we started kind of chatting and literally was like, look, if you ever want to do anything, let me know. And he
Where's he
was like,
from?
yeah, absolutely. He's from Arizona,
Okay.
Phoenix, I'm pretty sure. I don't think he's actually from Arizona
Just
originally.
lives
He
there.
lives in Arizona. Yeah, I think he's been there for a long time. But he's one of these people who like he just he's incredibly prolific. He just has like an album. He's like
Woo!
every time I talk to him, he's like, "Here's another album. Here's another album.
Jeez.
Here's another album." I'm just like, "Oh, okay." So it was really good to work with him because I basically just sent him loads of beats, and then he just was like, "This one, this one, this one, this one," recorded it, and just sent it back to me. It was really that simple,
Wow.
and yeah, and he's good to work with as well because he's very open to kind of he's just like, yeah, I'll do. He'll do different things, that way. He's like, my beats would probably be a bit more, a lot of breaks and kind of like very 90s kind of stuff, which is a little bit different to his style. But then he was like, yeah, no, I'll rap on whatever.
Yeah.
So
Great
it
project.
was a quick, yeah, yeah, it worked out well, and I think we're going to do another one soon enough as well. So
Fantastic.
he, yeah, I've sent him beats for that one as well. So, but I think he kind of has like he has a like kind of a lineup. I know he always has like an album that he's got like
Right.
5 albums,
Exactly.
and then he has to, yeah,
Oh, yeah, I completely understand. Just diving into multiple projects. I thought that was a really good one too. And you're right. I messed up on the timeline because, oh man, this is another project that just blew my mind. Was the one that you did with Starvin' B in
yes,
2017, the Choose Your Own
yeah,
Adventure. Holy cow,
yeah.
man. That was where's
Thank you.
Starvin' B from?
Starving Bee is Queens, New York.
Okay.
Um, yeah.
Man.
So again, yeah, like he's the real deal. He's again like discovered his stuff and just hit him up and was like, I was like, oh, can I get a feature for a track or whatever?
Yeah.
Then I was like, I really liked the track, and I was like, look, would you do? an album with me or whatever. He's like, yeah, sure.
dude.
Really, really easy guy to work with. He's just like, you know, just give him anything, and he's just like, oh,
Knocked it out.
knocked it out. Yeah, really did. That
Wow.
was kind of like my first kind of real, you know, album producer album kind of thing that
Yeah.
I kind of really, sculpted and kind of put together.
Yeah, I
And
mean, dude, those freaking albums were crazy, man. I want it all, Science, the Cash type. Oh man, those tracks is very lyrical, and the sound that you guys bring together,
yeah,
amazing, man. Yeah. So how long did those albums take to do? Martyr's Revenge and Choose Your Own Adventures. Was that like a year long project, or how fast were these guys in terms of getting you the music back?
so I think now. Yeah, I don't think it was like a year. I think I'm trying to think now. I think only a few months for like recording the vocals and stuff like that.
Man,
I tend to do what I do is I kind of send people beats
okay,
and then they'll rap over them. And then a lot of times they'll send it back to me. And the kind of longest part is kind of like I'll send them a beat and it'll just be like a straight loop. And
right,
then
right,
I'll get them to record to it. And then they'll send it back to me and then I'll rework the beat around it
right.
and kind of like add cuts and all that kind of stuff and flesh it out and kind of make it verse, chorus, whatever I need to do to make it more interesting. So kind of actually the writing and recording people are usually pretty quick. It's actually more on my end, kind of completing
Post
it.
production, right,
Yeah, exactly. And like a lot of the times, I'll have like an album, and I might even change like one track, the beat to a completely different beat to make it fit with the rest of the album if I think it doesn't really kind of suit. Um, with the with certainly with Starving Bees album, I did that a lot with that. There was a few beats on it that I was like, these aren't good enough. You know, a lot of the times you'll send a beat to a rapper and they'll send it back to you, and my thinking is like, holy shit, they like blew it out of the water. I need to step that beat up because that's not good enough for what they did, and I'll have to
sure,
redo it.
sure.
You know, which has happened a few times. Like the people I've worked with, you know, actually incredibly talented. You know, MCs like anybody I've actually worked with, um, has been like really really talented, really really skilled. I'm lucky
Amazing.
in that sense, and I sought those people out as well. To be honest,
Yeah,
I kind of like wanted to work with everybody I've worked with. I've really wanted to work with.
yeah.
Um, but like yeah, he was incredibly, you know, for a first kind of project. It was really good because he was so good. He made me better. Like,
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And did you well, you grew up same time that I did. Are you the type that you put these projects in physical form, or are these all digital releases? Yeah, I hope these things exist on physical copy, man. These are albums I'd really love to own.
oh yeah, thanks. The Starving Bee album came out on Tuff Kong Records, which is an Italian
Oh
record label.
yeah,
That's
yep.
yeah. So that was kind of one of their early releases. Starving Bee actually knew them, and he was like, "Oh, look, I'm gonna send this to them. They're
Fantastic.
really cool." So he sent it to them, and then they released that on vinyl. I'm trying to think. The Martyr's Revenge one has never. It's just digital, but
Okay.
I'm going to release that myself on my own label. I have a label, Cult Property
Very
Records,
cool.
so I'm going to kind of like little small kind of physical run stuff, the stuff that I haven't been able to place with bigger record labels or whatever.
That's great.
Um, so that I have all the artwork. I have new artwork for that and everything. I think I'm going to do like a short run with CDs maybe for that.
Yeah.
And I did a my first solo album, Habit of a Lifetime. That came out on CD on Chop Herring Records, which is a UK based
Yeah, Chop
record
Herring.
label.
That's right.
They're incredible. Yeah,
Yeah,
they're
they
like my
got
favorite.
huge catalog. The dude is insane, man. He's got some
Yeah,
amazing releases on that thing.
yeah, he's it's a really good style. It's amazing. So but yes, he did that on CD, and then I'm trying to think now. I've had a couple of vinyl releases as well. I did
Yeah.
a release. Yeah, most of them are kind of physical releases. A couple of vinyl, a couple of CDs. I did a cassette actually last year of a collab thing I did with a guy called Past Tense from Boston. That was
Oh,
my
sick.
first time ever releasing something myself. So I kind of like, I did the whole thing. It was a cassette release, and I was really happy with the way that turned out. I did the whole thing basically. I didn't do to draw the artwork or anything. I got someone to do that, but I kind of
Yeah.
my first kind of time putting a project together and releasing it, so it worked out really well. So yeah,
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Another great project. The last two I'll talk about, one was the Seven versus One with Masters of Verbal Spray. Oh, man. Uncut, pure. Amazing project in general. But how did that project come together?
so that is with a group called Seven Odds, and they are a kind of a record label and kind of group of MCs from
Okay.
Chicago, and they basically the guy who's kind of like guy who I heard of first is a guy called Dream Tech, and he's one
Okay.
of the MCs. He's like a producer, DJ, and MC,
Yeah.
and an engineer himself. And they have a studio in Chicago. But I heard of his stuff through Chopped Herring Records. They released
Oh,
an
wow.
album. Yeah, and I basically heard it. I was like, oh, this dude is amazing. So
Yeah.
I was doing a solo album, and I basically asked him for a feature on one of my tracks, and I basically I started kind of building a relationship with him through that, and then he basically was saying that they do these kind of group projects where they get a different producer just to produce a whole project. So he did a couple of them with
Yeah.
different producers, and he's like, "Would you like to do one?" And I was like, "Hell yeah!" And so I kind of sent him through a whole lot of beats, and again, he's a really kind of industrious kind of dude. He basically was like, I'm gonna organize all the guys. We're gonna record it in our studio, and
Yeah.
then we'll send it back to you. And like, then they were like, he's like, I'm gonna record videos for like pretty much every song, and then we're gonna release it ourselves on CD. And they did
Nice.
like t-shirt bundles and stuff like that. That was a really good release as well. Like really,
Yeah.
the whole crew were really talented kind of dudes. It
Yeah.
worked out really well.
Yeah. That was a great project, man. Really enjoyed it, man. Just your production over the years has been
Thank you.
very, very awesome. And I'm a big fan of the dusty sounding beats, the gritty and soul sampling type of music, man. And you capture that really well. You do it really good, and I really enjoy it. And it was quite obvious too, as well, in your MF Doom remix album that you put together. That was another one that I thought summarized your style really well. And I saw in the recent maybe week or so, you were showing some of the Doom albums. So tell me, are you a big MF Doom fan?
Yeah, I mean, I know everybody is, but I suppose I kind of, I know this, like, it's kind of, obviously since his passing, he's kind of gotten even bigger than he ever was, which usually happens.
Right, right,
But,
yeah, yeah,
I kind of, when I was working at Terra Records, Mad Villainy came out, and that's actually is it Mad
dude.
Villainy? Yeah, that was the first album that I heard. Like Stone's Throw at that period, like Mad Lib was
Oh,
just like that. Mad Villainy and J Lib came out at the same kind of time, and I was just like, holy shit. I was a
yeah,
big Jay Dilla fan as well. Like I knew Jay Dilla from the Far Side because I was a huge Far Side fan, and then obviously like De La Soul Stakes is High is like one of the best songs ever made of any genre. So I
yeah,
kind of Madlib, Jay Dilla, and then Doom, and then I kind of went back into Doom's kind of discography and stuff from
yeah,
Operation Doomsday, AMD, all that kind of stuff.
bro.
And I was just like, wow, incredible, incredible MC. But yeah, so that would have been like 2000s or whatever. And yeah, ever since then, I was like, anything that he would release, that period as well, like of
Yeah,
the kind of 2000s, it was like Stone's Throw or Killing with MF Doom, you know, Jay Dilla, um, all that kind of stuff was hugely influential.
yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, and you're right. It's unfortunate that he blows up, you know, stuff. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed that, and again, I thought that was just a great project that really showcased your sound throughout some of the albums that we talked about. What do you have in the lineup? Is there something that you want to tell folks about in terms of projects you got coming? One in particular that you want to talk about?
Let me think. I have a few that are kind of gestating. So I have that one with Q, which I'm
Yep.
pretty excited about. He keeps sending me beats, and like I said, like I keep sending him beats, and I'm kind of like, I think about it in a different way. I can't really imagine someone, and then he sends it back, and I'm like, whoa, it's even better than I thought. So I'm very excited about that one, I have to say. And so that's coming, should be coming in the next year, I'd say. Then I have another one with Grim Moses,
Good.
and then I'm trying to think what else I have in the run. Um, I think after that I'm gonna do a solo album again, maybe
Nice.
another solo album. But I'm really trying to kind of do my record label, and I think I'll probably start
Fantastic.
releasing vinyl myself and doing kind of like I want to take it back to 12 inches and start doing 12 inches, similar to like Fondlum records and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just with different MCs and stuff like that. But all my production, but like any totally different MCs every time.
Yeah. Hey, super exciting, man. Well, good. Hey, man, it was really fun going through your catalog. I am certainly a fan, but hey, man, with all the stuff going on, man, do you have time for fun? What do you do, man? What are your hobbies outside of music and just work in general?
Music. No,
I feel
I
like
don't
that's
do
me
anything
too.
else. Yeah, literally like records, gear, music. I just
Yeah,
that's all I do. It's like I work and then I come home and I make music,
I
and
love it, man.
that's
That,
pretty
that's
much
the
it.
best, man. Yeah, Ireland's looks like an amazing place, man. I'll someday I get to make it out there and just travel.
It
You
is.
guys got a couple cities I really want to see: Dublin, Belfast, and Cork, and just do the
Yeah,
works, man.
that's
Really cool. Well, good. Hey, before we close this interview out, I'd love to just jump in some fun questions and see more of the personal side of DJ M-1. So if you are good, I'm gonna kick this thing off. I got some questions for you.
okay. Go
All
for it.
right, first one. Weirdest thing Americans do.
The weirdest thing Americans do. Oh God. The weirdest thing. I suppose your obsession with peanut butter and jelly. I never really kind of got that one. But what's that
That's
all
pretty
about?
good. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of. Why would you put those two things together? I don't get
I know.
it.
It's certainly me. I haven't had one in a long time, but I do remember when I really enjoyed those things on toasted bread. That's pretty funny. All right. Hey, are you a stout or whiskey guy?
Um, I would say whiskey. Yeah, whiskey.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Awesome,
we're
man.
kind of like
Yeah, do you like American beer at all or no?
American beer. Do you know what? I haven't really had a lot of American beer. Obviously, like Budweiser, I know about that and stuff like that. But I wouldn't really.
Yeah.
Yeah, we kind of get a lot of German beer over here and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
you
But
guys
I
got the
like
good stuff right
beer.
too, right? So yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. First thing you would buy if you won the lottery.
First thing I would buy. Oh, um, maybe a new mixing console
Oh,
or SP 1200. I don't have an SP 1200. Probably one of those.
nice.
Yeah, that or one. Actually, do you know what you guys do extremely well in America is cars. You
Oh,
have incredible cars over there.
okay.
All your muscle cars and everything. Um,
Sure.
with I got married in New York, and then
Oh,
we
wow.
went for our honeymoon, yeah, on the West Coast, and we drove. Um, we flew into San Francisco and stayed there for a few days, and then we drove all the way down to LA
Yeah.
and
Fun.
stayed in a few places along the way. And all the cars on the freeway and everything,
Amazing.
every car is incredible, like Mustangs, really really cool. So maybe an American muscle car. Bring it
I
to
like
Ireland.
that. I like that. All right. Favorite Irish dish.
Oh, we don't really do. We're not very good with food. I have to admit.
Think so, huh? Oh man. I just
Yeah,
learned
we don't.
about beef and Guinness stew. I had no idea that you guys put Guinness in the stew. to tenderize the
Yeah,
beef. I'll have to try that sometime. That's pretty cool.
that is actually nice. Yeah, stews are probably very good. We make Guinness bread as well, which is really nice.
Oh, that yeah,
Yeah,
potato
yeah,
pancake. That sounds quite delicious too.
yeah, very good actually. Yeah, bit of
Okay.
butter on it. Very nice.
All right. Last piece of food I'll touch on is the 15s. Are you familiar with 15?
No, what's
It's
this?
the Northern Ireland dessert. It's a sweet slice of dessert that uses marshmallow, condensed milk, and graham crackers. Wow. Deadly combination. Sounds
Uh,
amazing, though.
that does sound amazing. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm not familiar with it. Yeah, yeah. I see I'm down south, so
Oh,
I
okay.
think yeah, it's quite we're quite we have different kind of every region kind of has their own kind of every
Yeah.
county is very kind of like different stuff like that. But I haven't heard of that actually. But
Okay.
it does sound nice. Condensed milk in anything is always good.
Yeah, I know. Oh my gosh. Hey, what's your favorite guilty
Favorite
pleasure?
guilty
Last
pleasure.
question for you.
Now I'm trying to think what my favorite guilty pleasure is. Oh,
Hmm.
God, that's a good one. I wouldn't really. Yeah, I don't really. Yeah, I don't know. Oh, I suppose kicks runners. I really runners are like my guilty pleasure. Like I buy a lot of runners, like trainers,
Huh.
so like Vans and Nike and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
I'm
Oh
usually
man.
very yeah,
Good
usually very
deal,
big
man.
into that one.
Well, hey, man, it was definitely an honor to speak with you about your music. For me to learn more about Irish culture and just your integration into hip hop was great. You got some amazing products, and I'm a big fan of your work. Again, I love that gritty sound, the soul samples that you use, and it keeps the head nodding and just great music, man. I love it, man. I love learning about music from different pockets of the world, and just the you're doing out there is great. Hey,
Thank
hey,
you.
thank you for your time. And you want to tell folks real quick, best place to find your music, and please close the show out with some final words. Over to you.
Yeah, sure. The best place to kind of find me is my Bandcamp. So djm-1.bandcamp.com. That's the
Oh,
place to find all my music. And then obviously Spotify. You just search DJ and then M-1 and you'll
sure.
find me. And just thanks a lot for having me. And
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, I'm
absolutely.
your stuff as well, and everybody that I've kind of encountered through through um, through hip hop. That's the one thing I can say about hip hop. It's an amazing music, and you're right. It does travel like this, like French hip hop, German hip hop. It's everywhere, and
Yeah,
it's it's to be honest, for me, hip hop has allowed me to be a musician. That's the way that's how I kind of view it. So it's an incredible music. It's like it deserves to be as big as it is.
100%.
Yeah. So thanks a lot.
Absolutely, man. Well, I look forward to getting this interview out. Enjoy your weekend, my brother.
Thanks a million. Thanks for having me, dude. Nice to talk
Yep.
to you.